You know, it's really interesting to see what movies from years ago will suddenly pop off and make its way back into relevancy thanks to memes and social media. For those out of the loop, Cat in the Hat memes have taken Instagram and TikTok by storm, and I can't lie, some of these are absolutely hilarious. I was talking about it with a friend recently, and he was going on and on about how much he loved it as a kid, and to this day still thinks it's pretty funny. This then sparked memories of hearing some of my other friends say similar things. For a lot of kids out there, this film was a staple in their childhood, making it one of those movies that were on constant repeat thanks to physical media being quite common back then. I know I had my fair share of repeat movies as a kid, but Cat in the Hat just wasn't one of them. I honestly think a lot of that had to do with my dad just not liking it, so as I grew up, I was kind of surprised to see how much of a cult fan base this movie really has, which no doubt has played a role in his recent comeback. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I saw an RV related meme. Clearly somebody is still watching this movie. Considering the kind of content I make on my channel, I figured it would actually make sense for me to finally take a look at the film as an adult from beginning to end to see if I can understand both my dad's side and my friend's side when it comes to this film. Because as much as you hear people say good things about it online, there is still a crowd out there that have a very different view. Why is that? Well, today is the day where we find out. Although released in 2003, development for a live-action Cat in the Hat film can be traced all the way back to 1996, when DreamWorks acquired the rights to the beloved children's book. The thing is though, the movie pitch back then was a lot different than the movie we ended up getting. How do I know that? Well, for starters, Steven Spielberg was originally attached to it, with Eric Roth serving as the film's screenwriter. The two even made several trips to Dr. Seuss's widow, Audrey Gazel's house, to get the green light from her. A very respectable move. However, like a lot of films, development for it stalled for a bit. And considering production didn't pick up until after the Jim Carrey Grinch film released and proved to be a hit commercially, I'd imagine that movie is what made the studio realize that there is in fact an audience for a live-action Dr. Seuss film, especially when attaching an A-list actor to the project to get people in seats. Eventually though, the names helming the project would shift over time, with Bo Welch being attached to direct the film and David Mendel eventually being named to pen the script with Alec Berg, the latter of whom made a name for himself while being on the writing staff of Seinfeld. And also, speaking of Seinfeld, naturally the studio wanted to attach a big name comedic actor to the project, following the same formula as a successful Grinch film. And Jerry was one of the people that was attached to the movie, with other names being Tim Allen, Will Ferrell, Robin Williams, Adam Sandler, and Martin Short. Out of all these names, I probably would have wanted to see Robin Williams do it the most. Kids movies were kind of his bag around this time, and I think he would have brought a nice mix of kookiness, charm, and wit to pull it off. So basically, if you were on SNL at any point in time, you had a pretty decent shot at being considered to play the iconic character. If this movie was made today, I have no doubt that Pete Davidson would have been at the very least considered. This movie was released at an interesting time because this was truly when movies based on nostalgic IP started to really become a thing. I know a lot of people talk about how bad things are now, and rightfully so, but really the 2000s is when this really became a popular trend. In 2003 alone, we had Looney Tunes Back in Action, great movie by the way, Inspector Gadget 2, and Peter Pan, I guess if you want to count that. Then in the surrounding years, we got 2 Scooby-Doos, 2 Garfields, a Flintstones, Fat Albert, the list goes on, and that's not even going past 2005. The point I'm trying to make is that movies like this were starting to become really popular around this time. How does Cat in the Hat compare to all the other ones though? Well, time to find out. The cast we did end up getting might be one of the most 2000s casts of all time, with nearly everyone starring in other fairly recognizable projects from that era. Obviously, we should probably start with Mike Myers, the comedian known for starring in hit projects like SNL, Austin Powers, and Shrek. He wasn't Universal's first choice for the movie, nor was this movie one of Myers' first choices to star in. Matter of fact, this only really came about thanks to him already having a pre-existing contract with Universal around that time, agreeing to star in a movie that he later tried backing out of. However, to settle the situation and to avoid any further legal trouble, he had to start another project with the studio, which of course ended up being Cat in the Hat. Aside from him though, we have Spencer Breslin and Fly Anning. Spencer, for whatever reason, is in like 20 films with Tim Allen. Not sure how that happened, but one of them is Zoom, which I actually made a video on, so go check that out. Flat Fanning was also popping off around this time, appearing in movies like War of the Worlds and Uptown Girls. Then, of course, you got Alec Baldwin, Kelly Preston, Beans from Even Stevens. Yeah, he's in the movie too. It's an all-star lineup, I'm telling you. The story of the movie follows a somewhat similar premise to the book, though considering the source material is only about 30-something pages, they had to add in a lot of other stuff to pad the time. Even with that being the case, the movie is only about an hour and 20 minutes, which is pretty short for a theatrically released film. For starters, the entire intro showcasing the real estate business that Joan works at is obviously not in the book, neither is her germaphobe boss. Besides setting the comedic tone for what kind of movie we're about to experience, this intro doesn't do much other than set up the main story and conflict of the film. A work meeting will be held at Joan's house later that day, and so in order to make a good impression and maintain her job, the house needs to be as spotless and tidy as possible, especially considering one, who her boss is, and two, the last time a meeting was held at her house, it was quite messy. A lot of this is due to her kids, Sally and Conrad, the latter of whom is the real troublemaker and also went nameless in the original book. Sally is very smart and well behaved, whereas Conrad isn't either of those things. Considering the stakes involved, before she heads back to the office, Joan tells her kids that while she's gone, they need to be on their best behavior, but to ensure that that happens, she hires Mrs. Kwan, played by Amy Hill, to watch over them. Of course, she ends up knocking out within her first few minutes of being there, leading to the kids basically being home alone. That is, until they hear a noise upstairs. But little did they know, they'd be in for quite a scare. I wonder how long I can keep up this whole rhyming thing. Hold on, let me cook. Turns out it was a cat with a hat on his head. He was everywhere they went, no matter how fast the kids fled. The closet, the living room, even under the bed. I wonder if he's a fan of Trippie Redd. I don't know, I give up. The next 30 minutes is when the movie starts to become more so on path with the original book. Only in the sense that everything that happens begins to align more with it. In the original book, once Cat arrives, he immediately starts doing a bunch of crazy stuff to teach the kids how to properly have fun. And yeah, the same thing happens in the movie as well, maybe with some sprinkled in musical numbers. Matter of fact, this movie was originally pitched to Universal as a kid-friendly version of Ferris Bueller, which adds up considering how similar the endings are. But the biggest thing about the movie that contributed to its notoriety is how exactly it goes about doing all of this. While the Cat in the Hat book is pretty wholesome and child-friendly, this movie pushes the boundaries of the PG rating pretty hard in nearly every way. Cat in the Hat was officially rated PG for mild, crude humor and some double entendres. And I don't know how true this is, but apparently it's the only movie in history to specifically have a double entendres listed as one of the reasons it received its rating. This movie was kind of released in an era where nearly every live-action adaptation of a beloved kid's IP had somewhat of an edginess or a crudeness to it. Some of it was for the kids, but a lot of it was for the adults watching, since they'd be the ones to pick up on the innuendos. One of the greatest examples of this would be that Scooby-Doo movie from 2002, a movie that is well documented to have originally been intended to be PG-13, but ended up getting an R rating after some jokes went a little too far, thus leading to the PG cut that we ended up getting, which, by the way, still had plenty of adult humor in it. The thing is, even in movies like Scooby-Doo or even the 90s Flintstones movie, at the end of the day, I still feel like an attempt was made at creating an earnest adaptation of the property at hand. In the midst of all the risque jokes and crude humor, these movies still felt like there was an element of love and care. This movie, on the other hand, I'm not going to go as far to say that there was no love or care, but I feel like the pitch behind it was, hey, what if we took Cat in the Hat and just went the exact opposite direction a typical Cat in the Hat adaptation would go? Thus leading to the entire movie feeling like an SNL sketch idea that's been stretched and stretched into a feature-length film. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I am some avid Cat in the Hat enjoyer. I'm sure it was read to me at some point in my life, but I was not raised on Cat in the Hat. Green Eggs and Ham, now that was a different story. I'm pretty sure we owned that one in the nostalgia household growing up, but I never cared about Cat in the Hat. So this movie didn't make me mad because it wasn't accurate to the book. I'm just saying it's a product of its time. One of the first things Cat does is try to spit some bars to get a little rhyming action going, but he gives up and says that he's just not good with all that. That line alone kind of tells you everything you need to know. At the same time, though, I obviously did not want them to rhyme throughout the entire film. That would have been horrible. And look, it's a funny line, especially the way that Myers delivers it, but it does kind of let you know what kind of movie this is pretty early, assuming you somehow missed the entire first 18 minutes filled with plenty of other clues. I think some of the jokes are handled pretty well. Canine American actually got a really good laugh out of me, but then there are other jokes that I just kind of have to roll my eyes at. Not necessarily because it's a Cat in the Hat adaptation, but mainly because I find jokes like this to be cheap and tacky. And I think most of the time, that's kind of how I feel about the humor in this movie. When it's smart, but there's a good portion of it that's just, again, eye-roll worthy. But I gotta give credit where credit is due. Despite the fact that he clearly did not want to be there, Myers actually does a pretty good job. Even in the movie's worst moments, it's never really his fault. Everything from the way he walks, the way he talks, and even laughs can be really funny.
She was gonna wear that tonight and you ruined it.
Honey, it was ruined when she bought it.
Even though I think there were other actors that probably could have done a better job if the movie was going a more sincere route, I actually think Myers put on a near perfect performance for the kind of movie that it is. And it's not hard to find why kids would find a movie like this to be funny, and have fond memories of it now. I even like how Looney Tunes inspired Cat is. The way he warps reality to whatever setting he sees fit for a gag is very Bugs Bunny-esque, and it's one of the changes they made that I actually enjoyed. I also liked Thing 1 and Thing 2, but I can't really pinpoint why. I think it's just due to how broken my sense of humor is. Going from a high-pitched Zinga Zinga to is unfortunately hilarious. And of course, I gotta bring up the ongoing joke of Cat mispronouncing Conrad's name. That was never not funny. In a weird sort of way, how I feel about the movie resonates with the main lesson. I think that the brand of humor can work, but only in a way that's more controlled. When the entire thing is like that, eventually it starts to become a chore to watch. Throughout the movie's chaos, it does try to lock in and tell a story here, using the cat's actions as a parallel to Conrad and his arc. And the movie doesn't ignore Sally either. Her arc is more so on the other side of the spectrum. She takes life way too seriously for an elementary school aged kid and could use a little more fun in her life. She literally asked her mom for a rule to follow. I would have hated her in school if she was my classmate. While trying to retrieve their dog, Sally sees a party happening that she could have easily been invited to, but wasn't thanks to her strict and stern mentality. Also, random thing to point out, but one of the little girls she was beefing with is played by Tasha from Everybody Hates Chris. I had a Leo DiCaprio moment when I saw that. And so yeah, after going on some wild goose chases and adventures, the kids both learned that their lives could use a little more balance. A similar-ish ending to the book, plus I'm kind of counting on most of you already watching this movie at some point, so no need to really go into detail. Even the mom learns a lesson or two. Everything goes well with the meeting held at Joan's house, and everyone lives happily ever after. Maybe besides Alec Baldwin's character. Not because he died on screen or whatever, just because me personally, I don't know what I'd do if I fumbled in the same way that he did, you know? And to truly put a bow on this movie being a peak 2000s experience, it ends with a Smash Mouth song in the credits. Because whenever you put Mike Myers in the song, apparently you also need Smash Mouth on the soundtrack. It's not hard to see why a movie like this ended up becoming a cult favorite amongst the kids that grew up with it. I don't think kids were really clamoring for a comic accurate portrayal of Cat in the Hat. They just wanted a fun movie, and for what it's worth, this movie definitely had plenty of fun elements in it that would have a kid in stitches. Thing 1 and Thing 2, Mike Myers' portrayal of the character, the fast-paced nature of the story, trust me, I get it. But even this movie's strongest soldiers have to also see why this film was critically panned when it came out, and why it might just be an example of a movie that one might simply like because they had it on DVD or something growing up. Cat in the Hat was one of the most critically panned films of 2003, being nominated for 10 Razzies. Not to mention the reception of the film was so bad that Audrey Gazel forbade any live-action films based on her husband's characters. Interesting to note, because 8 years after her passing, a sequel to Jim Carrey's Grinch was greenlit, and I saw very little outrage over that online. I'm not sure why though. They must be waiting for the Pie Guy Rules video to drop. Heyo! Not to mention the movie made only $134 million, and while I'm sure it did well in physical media sales, the budget was $109 million, which, okay, at first I kind of scoffed at, but after watching it in full, especially as an adult, this movie's low-key kind of gorgeous. I think that's the only thing that makes me a little mad regarding this movie. It could have honestly been generational if it was an earnest or close to earnest take on the book. Like, imagine if this was a genuine feel-good movie similar to Paddington or something. We would have lost out on memes, but maybe Universal wouldn't have lost out on millions. I was very impressed by the production of this movie. The set design, the wardrobe, the makeup, even the CGI at times was pretty good. Grinch had a budget of $123 million, so it's not like this movie's budget is out of line. Matter of fact, it was even cheaper. It was still a lot of money though, and it doesn't help that the initial reception to the movie just wasn't good. Despite that though, it's left an interesting legacy behind it. It might have been panned when it came out, but it's gone to accumulate quite the following. Every kid kind of had a movie that they'd watch on repeat over and over again, and this was that movie for a lot of people. And like I said before, I understand why. It's the kind of movie you watch whenever your friends or cousins would come over, or if it was a warm summer day, but it was raining. And some people might even have memories of watching it on Cartoon Network, like after school or something, back when the flicks was still a thing. It's not about the quality of the movie sometimes, it's about the fond memories attached to it. This is why I didn't feel comfortable doing my usual review style for this movie, because one, there's no use making fun of a movie that was never really intended to be all that good to begin with, and two, I know what this movie means to a lot of people, and so while I wanted to give my honest thoughts about it, I also didn't want people to get excited seeing this video on their notification just for me to trash their favorite childhood movie over and over again. So, with that being said, don't expect a Shark Boy and Lava Girl review anytime soon. Sorry. It's also not hard to see why this movie has become a meme in recent months. Granted, memes of this movie have kind of always existed, but it's definitely ramped up recently, and some of them are frying me, I can't lie. It's part of the reason why I made this video. I'll be honest, I don't think Cat in the Hat 2003 is very good. I'm not mad at it like some others were, especially back in the day, but I also understand why so many adults reacted the way they did to it. I wasn't a Cat in the Hat guy growing up. I have no attachment to Cat in the Hat as a character. But in that similar vein, I was and still am a Looney Tunes fan. So if a movie came out that I felt misrepresented or degraded the brand, I wouldn't be all that happy. Oh wait, I'm describing the Space Jam films. Oh well, that's a topic for another video on another day. What I want to know though are your thoughts on the movie. Please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Check out my Patreon if you want to see content earlier than everyone else. Also subscribe to my second channel, simply titled Nostalgia, for more of me. I'm also on TikTok and Letterboxd, so give me a follow on there as well if you'd be so kind. If you're new, feel free to subscribe and hit that like button, and like always, I am Mr. Nostalgia, and I'm out for now.